I can't escape my mind. From a broken bough, fall into finite space. With a roof torn down, this house is an empty place. So tired of wandering around and starting over. No garden grows here now, just a one-leaf clover. When the windows shutter, it's always dark inside. Sometimes the pain is absurd, still it's what fate decides. Thought I saw Jesus come down, dressed like a soldier. I used to cry like a clown, and now I'm older. Here come the lonely night, can't escape my mind. Here come the lonely night, can't escape my mind.
There's interesting dynamics when there's inspirations and images that kind of possess the mind and visions. And then there's also ideas that play. And I guess that's kind of, for me, it's sort of like a background music with these ideas or notions. And so they're evolving with the imagery. Climate change is obviously a very prescient issue for all of us, really. And when I was working specifically around a theme around that, and I love working with the figure. So for me, it was about bringing in elements, and in that show, water. So there were rising tides, there was floods, the figures, immersed in water. And also small symbols. There's often symbolism through my work, even if it's just a small aspect. And in this case, it was birds, and it was about noticing the small changes, taking note of the things that are perhaps dropping off, becoming extinct, that changes the impact that's happening while we're aware of the big change, and bringing that relationship back to the personal, which is where the figure really comes in. So it's not that the planet's separate from us. We have a relationship, an interrelationship, and we also have that with ourselves and with each other. And often my work has a sense of self-exploration, being a kind of reflective person and interested in what makes human beings work and how we really understand ourselves in the world. So in the works, it's about the relationship that you have with yourself, but also with other people, and how that relationship reflects in how we treat the planet as well. At 5 years old, I knew, I was like, I'm going to be an artist. And every opportunity I would have been drawing, whether it was a bit of rock on the road or wherever, just constantly. And even at school, I quite liked school, so I'd just do on my work really quickly, and then the teachers would put me aside so I could paint and draw. So I spent half of my school time just painting and drawing. And so it was always there. And went to art school, of course, straight after secondary school. There was no way that I could not do the art. It was like, if someone had told me not to breathe. And so for me, it's like that, and it had to be more prominent in my life. So a few years ago, I just decided it's time for me to be full-time and give it all my focus and attention. I do wish that I could have woken up, at 5 years old and known how to paint. And it's been a bit of a journey learning how to develop this kind of technique, which is, I guess, more traditional realism, and wasn't something that was really taught at art schools back in the day when I studied. And so very much it's been about trying to find the resources and very much looking at paintings. So travel and looking at paintings. And I was really fortunate to spend a lot of time doing paintings conservation with a professional conservator. And so I came across lots and lots of fantastic paintings, Streetons and McCubbins and all kinds, ranging from 12th century to contemporary work. So I learnt like an apprenticeship by studying how these paintings were constructed. And then it's been lots of time on the brush for me, and come across a couple of good teachers here and there that have been really generous in sharing some of their technique. So in that way, it does take time, and that also gives me time to develop the work. So I think it kind of goes both ways. When I'm thinking about shows or inspirations, it is so much a build-up from ideas that I might have been toying with for years that have just kind of found their time of fruition, and also current inspirations and things that I'm listening to, ideas that I'm exploring personally, or things that are happening in the world that I connect to. So when I'm thinking about this current show in connection with the last show, Alchemy, and there's a consistency for me in my fascination around things around the edge of change. So the last show about transformation, alchemical transformation, magical transformation, and the show before that even, which was called A Terrible Beauty, was about climate change. So it was about our relationship with each other and our relationship with the planet and the changes that are occurring there. So there's constantly, as we go through, for me, even though the imagery might evolve and change, there's an interest in that edge of change and how we evolve. Currently I'm working on a body of work called Airborne, and it'll be showing at Anthea Paulson Art on the Gold Coast, opening March 29th. And this show is really about, it was a play on words really. So airborne being like something that's carried, on the air. The way we float, that desire or aspiration to fly, the way our imaginations can soar. So it alludes to all those kinds of things. But at the same time, airborne can be like, just born out of thin air. So appearing magically. An artist will put so much of their self, their effort, their thoughts, their thinking into a work. And all of that feeds the inspiration and feeds the drive and the engagement in that creative process. And it creates the work the way that it will come out. At the same time, I'm so open to how people will receive it. And some people will be attracted to the work simply because they feel like there's a beauty there, or there's something kind of a little bit strange that they can't quite put their finger on, but it's curious and fascinating, or that there's something dark and mysterious. And all of those things are aspects that I would want them to perceive. They don't have to get the whole picture because their experience, their life experience is going to be different than mine anyway. And they're going to see things through their perspective and their eyes. If it has something for them that they respond to, that's really part of the whole process. There are colour themes in my work, and sometimes I don't even realise until I go back and have a look at some early pieces. But even back in 2008, 2007, I was, working with red turbaned women, or, women with this incredible royal blue kind of drapery. So these two colours seem to be ones that keep returning. And for me, colour is symbolic in that way too. And they have different resonances. Very early on, before I was really comfortable with painting flesh tones, I actually started painting Chinese silks. And so there was lots of embroidery and aspects like that. And part of it was learning the technical skill and also a fascination for intricate kind of patterns and things like that. So there is certainly an aesthetic there. At the same time, when there's a pattern, it intensifies the depth and the sense of dimension in cloth. In these current works, there's like a gold kind of folding pattern on the red, and that is another way of kind of giving symbolism to something being precious or hinting at the sacred. So there's both the aesthetic and there's often always some other underlying reason for me. There's so many ideas that are waiting to be brought to fruition and calling. And often it's just, waiting for that one which is going to be louder than the others. I've got a hankering, and I'm not sure when this will appear, but there'll be 3D works and sculptural works at some stage. That's just going to be calling, and it continues to do so. So who knows when that will happen, if even, but it's just there as another aspect of the work that may develop. I'm really fascinated at the moment with levitation and flight, and so I'm sure that may return in the work, and always the figure, and the female and the male figure, individually or working with figures, as I have before, in pairs or groups. So finding new ways to really bring out these ideas that are more prominent for me about our personal relationship and our relationship with our world.